Okay, well, it is the top of the hour, everyone. Again, thank you so much for being here today. We are so excited that you're joining us from all over the globe. My name is Jenna, and I am the brand ambassador for Donorbox, and I'll also be the moderator for this webinar today. For those of you who are not familiar with Donorbox, we provide nonprofits with simple and effective tools to manage their online fundraising activities and connect with individual donors on a deeper level. To date, we have helped over 35,000 organizations across the globe raise over $700 million. To learn more, you can visit us on our site at donorbox.org. And today we are so excited to be joined by Joy Dooling to talk about how to attract, engage, and retain more donors. This is something that we all need, right? Now, Joy has been working with leaders of associations, trade groups, and nonprofits since 2005 through her consulting practice, which is aptly named The Joy of Membership. In that role, she has gained recognition as a speaker, online educator, podcaster, and trusted advisor. She has extensive experience in experience design, strategic planning, team facilitation, change management, and association operations. But Joy does not just talk the talk. She has also walked in the shoes of a nonprofit builder, spending a decade as an executive director for a 501c3 organization, which she helped launch and grow more than $1 million in recurring annual revenue. Today, Joy connects with and works with nonprofit organizations from all over the globe. And we are so excited to have her today. Now, before I pass the baton over to Joy, I just want to mention a couple of housekeeping items. Please note that this webinar will be about 45 minutes long with an additional Q&A at the end. This webinar is being recorded. Don't worry, we have you covered. And all registrants will receive a link for that recording after the webinar. Now, you'll notice in your bottom right-hand corner that you have a chat box. I think most of you have found it already. Please use this chat box to type your questions in for Joy throughout the presentation, and we will be behind the scenes marking those questions so we can answer as many as we can at the end. We will also be sharing several helpful links throughout the presentation, and those will pop up in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. There we go. You can click those, and they will open right up. Whew. All right, without further ado, everybody please give Joy a warm welcome. We are so excited to have you. Passing it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenna. I want to fill my cup with whatever Jenna is drinking because she is surely the most positive and most energetic person I've ever met. So thank you for just being so delightful.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.
And thank all of you for coming. I love that this topic of donor experience resonated with so many people, and hopefully you're going to get some great value out of this webinar that you can take back to your organizations. So the first thing I would love for you to do is grab a blank piece of paper. If you have one close to you, it could just be a scratch piece of paper, and I want you to visually divide it into thirds. You can fold it or just, draw a couple lines through it. And if you don't have a piece of paper, that's a-okay. You can do this later, but it'll help if you can jot down some notes. So the first thing that I want to ask you is to think back to the last time you made a donation, not to your own organization. So any other nonprofit that you donated to, I'd like you to think about the experience that you had with that organization. Now, in the first column on that piece of paper, I would love for you to jot down some thoughts about why you chose to make that specific gift. What is it that the nonprofit said or did or communicated to you that made you choose to make that donation? And you can jot that down in the first column or throw those ideas as they jump into your brain into the chat. I'll give you just a moment to capture some thoughts there in that first column. Jessica says because she knew it would make a difference. Passion for the work, alignment of values, compelling cause to support someone cared about, recommendation from a friend. Awesome. These are great. Okay. Very good. Thank you. So in the second column, I would like you to capture how the organization responded after you gave. You gave the donation. What happened? Jot that down in the center column or throw those ideas into the chat window. Nothing. A call and a personal thanks. Not much. Just an email. Okay. Thank you postcard. A grateful kid. Okay. A receipt. Yeah, that happens quite a bit. Okay. Perfect. Okay, now in the third column, or in the chat window, I'd like you to capture if your gift made a difference. And how do you know that? No idea, not sure. Bombarded you with mail from other organizations. Okay. Shared images of kids receiving. Awesome. Update on the family situation. Okay. Seems like there's a lot of variation in what was experienced by you as a donor. Awesome. So we're going to come back to this piece of paper and these concepts in a little bit. So nonprofits today actually have to think about a lot of things related to donations. They're thinking about, which of their programs actually need donations to survive, what to call donor levels, how they're going to collect donations on the website, what to say in the thank you letter. But when you look closely at these things that nonprofits are typically thinking about, they're mostly about logistics and not about the experience. Experience design is different from designing logistics because the focus is on what it feels like to be a donor to your organization. Today, we're going to cover 3 experience design concepts. We're going to talk about the 3 types of value that donors need to get from you, that you need to be communicating to your donors, and they need to feel. We're going to talk about the donor lifespan, and then we're going to talk about how these 2 things build into CAREpoints, which determine what you do and don't do with your donors. So the result when you understand these concepts and you implement them well is that your donor experience will feel better to those who are giving to your organization. And numerically, that's going to mean that you will have faster donation decisions. People will be more apt to give. You will have stronger donor engagement. Those relationships, people will feel closer to your organization, and you will see more recurring gifts because people will understand that you've delivered value and they won't hesitate to give again. But these concepts, while important, the model that you're going to learn today only works if you actually use it. So I'm going to give you 2 things that will help you implement what we're going to talk about in this webinar. So throughout this slide, I will have discussion points for each concept, and you can take these discussion points back to your office and you can think about them solo. If you are a one-man show planning for your nonprofit, you can use them yourself. You can also use them for conversations with your team, conversations with your board. They're really intended to be a jumping off point for you to begin having some discussions in your organization that are going to make a difference in your member experience. And then I'm also going to give you what I call my CarePoint planner, which is a PDF. It will walk you right through the steps that I'll be describing today in terms of putting together CarePoints. So you'll be able to use that planner as you actually design donor CarePoints going forward from today. Now, Jenna did a great introduction. There are 3 things that I would love for you to know about me, and that's really about the 3 things I love. I am a social worker by training. I have a master's degree in social work, so that heart of a social worker runs through everything I do. I say I love big missions. My husband says I'm a sucker for a great cause. But I think that's a lovely way to walk through the world. So I've been working with nonprofits since 2005, literally since I started my business. The first organization that hired me was a nonprofit association. So it all started from day one. I was also an executive director of a nonprofit for a decade. I believe that small can be mighty. I don't think you have to have a big budget or a big team to create exceptional experiences. And I love showing organizations how to create capacity where they might not feel that they've always had it. And then I love simplifying complexity. So systems thinking, automations, those are my superpowers. So you're going to find in this webinar, I will give you a step-by-step model that you should be able to take back to your organization and just use. Now, I want to go back to the sheet of paper that you pulled out and jotted some notes on. And we're going to go through these 3 types of value that donors need to experience from an organization that they're giving to. So the first type of value is value anticipation. So in the first column where you captured why you gave to that organization, those things that you noted were probably related to the value that you anticipated, what your gift was going to be given for, how it was going to be applied, how it was going to create change for the cause. Value anticipation is the first type of value that people need to understand about your organization. And before someone actually gives a gift, they want to have some assurance that value is going to be achieved by virtue of them giving a gift. So this is especially important for prospective donors. And the more quickly you can communicate that promise of value and give people assurance of value being created, the faster they're going to be willing to give a gift to your organization. So hopefully you can see that the notes that you put in that first column were really about you anticipating that something good was going to be done with the gift that you were giving. And from the notes that I saw put in the chat, those ideas were very much in alignment with you feeling an anticipation of value. So the second column relates to the second type of value that your donors need to experience from you, and that is value validation. So value validation means that once the gift was given, the organization kept its promise, and you felt like the value that you anticipated was delivered. So the way organizations do this is by immediately communicating with you, showing you evidence that the gift that you gave was going to make a difference in their mission and make their work possible. And the better they do that, then the stronger you will feel about that value being validated. Does that make sense? Now, this is especially important for new donors, those people who have just made a gift. What you do next makes a difference. It matters. And if you were watching in the chat when I asked about, what happened immediately after a donation, there were lots of responses that were like, I got an automatic email. Nothing really happened. Now, there were a few sprinkled in there where people were like, oh, I got a thank you letter. I heard, about the family that the donation helped. So you can see kind of the spectrum there of organizations that are doing a great job in value validation and those who have some learning to do around that and could make some improvement in that particular type of value. Now, in the third column, this is really about value longevity. This is about knowing that the donation makes a difference and that if you gave again, it would continue to make a difference. So this is really important to attracting recurring donors. So when you communicate with your donors about how the money was used and the impact that it was made, that the gift made, you are building that sense of value longevity, that it's worth not just giving once, but giving on a recurring basis to your organization. So what do you do with these three types of value? You can have conversations back in your organization about these three types of value. You can use the same same piece of paper broken up into 3 columns. You can do this on a big whiteboard and draw your 3 columns and just ask the question, tee it up. What are we doing around value anticipation? How are we communicating to donors who have just discovered us that value is going to be delivered from their gift? How can we respond to new donors in a way that lets them know they made exactly the right choice to give? And then how can you show recurring donors that continued giving is going to make an even greater impact over time? Just having conversation about those 3 things can really create some aha moments for your team, for your board, for those who are involved in planning donor experience. Now, these 3 types of value break down further when you look at the donor lifespan. So there are 8 stages to the donor lifespan, and I'll run through what these are real quick. The first stage is discovery. This is when potential donors are just finding out about you. They know nothing about you, and they suddenly have a moment of discovery. That is the first stage. Contemplation is the stage in which they are considering whether to make a donation or not. Now, the contemplation period can be super short. It can also be super long. You can have people who join your mailing list and sit there for months or years without ever actually giving a monetary donation. But contemplation is a specific stage. It's stage 2. Activation is the stage in which someone actually makes a decision to make a donation. So these 3 stages, discovering you, thinking about donating, and then actually making whatever action, taking whatever action is required to become a donor, those 3 stages are part of value anticipation. For people who are just discovering you, thinking about donating, or having to take the action to donate, anticipating value is the highest priority thing you need to be communicating to them. Now, the next 3 stages really relate to value validation. These are people who have made the decision to donate. So step Stage 4 is onboarding. These are people who have just made a donation and you are doing something to kind of onboard them as a donor. And then you have early engagement, which I usually say is like the first 30 days or so. What happens in that, that initial period where they're becoming familiar with your organization and your work. And then extended engagement is the period of time after that. So these stages, value validation, showing these donors that they made the right decision, that is what is most important in these 3 stages. And then value longevity is really about long-term impact and showing them that if they made a recurring donation, it would continue to make an even greater impact. So there are 2 stages there. You have pre-renewal of the recurring donation decision, and then you have post-renewal. So they're leading up to, should I donate again? And then what actually happens after they donate is kind of that post-renewal stage. So these 3 types of value need to be woven into these 8 stages. So another point of discussion for your organization is looking at each of these lifespan stages and seeing if there are some opportunities here for you. Do you have things that you do in each of these stages? Do you actually acknowledge that these are unique opportunities, periods of time in which you can be creating stronger relationships with your donors? And if you have some here where, you're looking at the list and you're going, oh, we didn't even kind of think about that as, a place where we needed to be doing something, that gives you an opportunity to have some great planning conversations. So we're going to connect these concepts with CAREpoints. So first, you understand the 3 types of value. You understand the 8 stages of donor experience. And then when you start looking at that and go, I'm not sure, we're doing everything we could to convey value validation. And, maybe there's something else we need to be doing with the onboarding stage to let people know they just made a great decision to donate. So if you start identifying those gaps, CAREpoints is what you actually do. So CAREpoints are any opportunity that you intentionally create to touch a donor. And these are going to be most effective when you are conveying the right type of value within that specific lifespan stage that the donor is in. So to the extent that you can align all of these concepts, your CAREpoint will be stronger. So a few examples. So places where you might be able to build strong CAREpoints for your donors. Let's say someone submits the Contact Us form on your website. So someone has expressed interest in something, they've asked a question. That is the perfect place to design a CAREpoint that intentionally introduces them to your organization, starts connecting with them around the value that your organization delivers. And are these people put on your mailing list? Are they sent a special introductory sequence? Those sorts of things. Someone signs up as a new volunteer. I noticed someone in the chat put that they had given to the organization because they had volunteered and they suddenly realized what value the organization was creating. So someone signing up as a new volunteer is a great place to design a donor CAREpoint. Someone making their first donation, someone making their 10th donation, someone telling you that they were referred by a friend. I saw another comment in the chat about someone making a donation based on the referral of a friend. So these are very real, very meaningful opportunities to design a CAREpoint. Last example, someone convinced their company to sponsor your upcoming event. Definitely a CAREpoint opportunity. But notice what CAREpoints are not. I didn't say there was a CAREpoint at the point of your annual donor drive. I didn't say there's a CAREpoint at your organization getting mentioned in the paper, or a donor's company just agreeing to match gifts, or your monthly newsletter being due to go out. These are not CAREpoints because these are about you, the organization, and CAREpoints are always about what the prospective donor or current donor is experiencing, how you are making them feel as someone who is in a relationship with your organization. Now, the reality is that many nonprofits miss these valuable CAREpoint opportunities, and it's not because they don't care about these things. It's just that staff are juggling priorities. A lot of small, mid-sized organizations, even large ones actually, are very much dependent on volunteers, and volunteers have day jobs, family commitments. Growing your nonprofit is rarely someone's sole purpose in life. It happens, but that's rare. Committee members change, and sometimes what actually needs to happen in a donor experience hasn't necessarily been clearly defined or isn't effectively passed from one person to the next. The cost to the lost opportunities around CAREpoint can be significant. Organizations can see slow or no donor attraction. They can have fizzling donor engagement, or they can be disappointed about the recurring donation rates. This means that intentionally designing your CAREpoints, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, is among the most important work that you can do as a nonprofit leader. But like I said in the very beginning, most organizations are far more focused on logistics than actually how donors feel and how that relationship gets kindled and built over time. So let's talk about what makes a CAREpoint actually effective. So the CARE in CAREpoint is actually an acronym, which makes it pretty easy to remember what needs to happen in these CAREpoints. So the C stands for being consistent. When you have intentionally designed a CAREpoint, one of the most important things that you want to do to make it effective is to be consistent. So the things that you want to happen for these donors who are in these specific stages, those things happen every single time. So if someone hits that CAREpoint, the same sequence of things happens every single time. And intentional planning really pays off in these situations. Being attentive also makes a CAREpoint effective. So in order to actually deliver an effective CAREpoint, you actually have to notice that people are entering that CAREpoint opportunity. And I like to say there's always a trigger for every CAREpoint. There has to be something that happens that lets you know, oh, Sue Smith just hit this particular CAREpoint opportunity, and now these things are supposed to happen for Sue. The R stands for responsive. So you notice by being attentive that someone has hit this particular CAREpoint, then you actually have to do something about it. So these are the actions that you take based on what the donor needs from you in that specific moment. So again, this all ties back to which type of value is that person going to be most interested in recognizing from you, and which specific stage of their experience are they in. And you are responding with those things in mind. And then the E is for engaged. Your communications in each of these CAREpoints is about the donor not just about you. It's about what the donor is interested in, what stage they're in, the value that they need to see communicated. And what I see a lot of nonprofit organizations doing to get the attention of donors, I classify as shouting. They're trying to be the loudest, talk the most, hit people's inboxes the most often. But it's like shouting at the donor. And what I encourage clients to do is to lean in, to show interest in them, not to be shouting into the chaos of the online world. So, discussion points for your organization. Once you've looked at, are we communicating the 3 types of value? How do these 8 stages of experience relate to what our donors are experiencing? Then, are there care points in each of these stages that we could build or be better leveraging to create wow experiences, to boost the donor's understanding of impact, and just to connect more personally with them? Now, the resource that I want to put in your hands, if you are interested in actually doing the CAREpoints work in your organization, it's a PDF, and you can get it at joyofmembership.com/planner. And this PDF is a worksheet. You can copy it as much as you want. And when you fill it out, you are basically planning your CAREpoint. So it will walk you through which CAREpoint you want to focus on, how you'll address each part of the care: consistency, attention, responsiveness, and engaging. How you'll notice that someone actually is entering that CAREpoint. So, what's going to trigger that, what actions you'll put in place, and any messages that might need to be created to correspond with that particular CAREpoint. So it is just step-by-step going to walk you through each of those things. So you can use it solo on your own, use it with your team, use it with your board, but I think you'll find it super helpful. So 2 quick tips for success around CAREpoint planning is to pace yourself. It can be really tempting to be looking at the stages of experience and going, oh my gosh, we aren't doing anything in this stage, and we're not doing anything in this stage, and this stage could be improved now. We're doing something in this stage, but maybe not as much as we could. And you can really start kind of spinning off in different directions. You want to pace yourself around CAREpoint design. Don't try to do a bunch of new CAREpoints all at once. Pick one stage, a couple of CAREpoints, and work on those until you feel like you've strengthened them, and then you can move on to others. And then the other thing I will say is that automation is your friend. When you are, trying to deliver CAREpoints with real human beings, committee members who are busy, staff who have competing priorities, as much as you can automate without losing that personal feel is going to be really important. The magic is in automating without making it feel automated. And you can do a lot if you have a great contact management system, a great database, tools that let you tag people with the source that they came from, with any kind of personal information that you know about them. So if you have a great database and you have a great system to create automations, you can really take a lot of work off your plate and build some absolutely magical CAREpoints. So at this point, I've probably given you plenty to be thinking about and talking about back in your organization. So I would just open the floor to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joy, for that amazing presentation. I love how you began this presentation with putting us in the shoes of a donor. I think that we are all so focused on our work as fundraisers that we sometimes forget to look at the flip side. So thank you for walking us through that unique perspective. And all, thank you so much for participating and answering those different parts of the care planner. I think it was very insightful. Now, before we jump into Q&A, I want to announce, well, first of all, make sure that you have gotten your care planner. I launched that link. It is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You can click it and it will open right up for you to sign up for that care planner. Now, Donorbox has launched an amazing online platform called the Donorbox Knowledge Community. And this is a place where you can connect with like-minded individuals and other nonprofit professionals to get focused answers to your questions regarding marketing, web development, fundraising, board management, donor experience, whatever that may be. It is there in the Donorbox Knowledge Community. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. Ask you a quick question. And there we are. Are you a member of the Donorbox Knowledge Community? I know that we have some newbies here, so this is always an insightful moment, and you will see why I'm asking this in just a moment. Lots of newbies. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Now, the Donorbox Knowledge Community is where we're going to put the recording for this session. I know many of you have asked for the recording. That is where it's going to live. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this link. And you can go to the Donorbox Knowledge Community. You can go on, thank Joy, ask questions, rewatch this amazing recording, and we've got everything there for you. All right. Now, without further ado, everybody, please drop your questions in. Joy, you did an amazing job. A lot of the questions that I had, you answered almost right away. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the questions tab here. What systems do you recommend for automation? This is a question from Rose.
So I have my own platform that I use called Journey here, but if you are using a donation software, there are probably some automations that you can do in there. I mean, I don't know every type of software that is possible. I'm sure Donorbox lets you do quite a bit, but you know, when I'm looking at the entirety of a stakeholder's experience, I generally use Journey Care.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And yes, Donorbox does offer some automations. It's so important to thank your donors right after they've given you a gift, and you can automate those thank you letters, and you can automate those receipts and the year-end receipts, and it just makes everything go so smoothly and make sure that you are relaying your thanks right away, and so that your donors know your impact, because that is so important. They need to see the impact of their donation. Now, from Lillian, I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the fourth stage for us?
So the fourth stage is onboarding, and onboarding really relates to what happens immediately after someone takes the step, the action that you have set up for them to become a donor. So, you know, I use the word onboarding. It's going to relate to what do you send to them? What do they gain access to? How do you communicate the immediate next steps? Now, sometimes when people are talking onboarding for like a membership program or something like that, they create an onboarding process. They think of it kind of as a longer period of time. In my model, it's what happens immediately. So a welcome kit, a welcome email, a receipt, access to an online community, those things that you make immediately happen as a result of them making a donation. And then early engagement is basically everything that happens after. That's the fifth stage, early engagement. So onboarding is just what happens immediately after someone gives that donation.
Thank you so much, Joy. Now, I love this question from Pablo. Would you recommend to follow donors on social media and give them birthday, congrats, wedding anniversary, asking about their children, or is this too much? And should you just do this via email?
I think we live in a very social world at this point, and I think that a lot of engagement is happening on social media. Now, it might also kind of depend on the area in which your organization focuses. Certainly, engaging closely on social media might not be the best thing for every organization to do, but if it's appropriate for your donors, for your audience, I say go for it. I always, when I use the analogy when we're talking about kind of how to engage with people, I use the analogy of going on a date. So let's say you go on a blind date with someone and your date does nothing but talk about themselves, and they're really trying to make a great impression. So they're talking about everything wonderful about themselves. Your experience as the person who is on that date is like, why is this person like doing so much talking about themselves? It's an entirely different feel to the date if the date is kind of leaning forward and asking questions about you and what are you interested in, and hey, where did you last go on vacation? What's your plan for the future? That is a far more engaging experience than just doing a bunch of talking at someone. So I say if it's appropriate to your area, go for it on social media.
I love that analogy. I have not heard that one before, Joy. Thank you so much for that. And again, Pablo, that was a great question. Again, we live in an age where, that may work, interacting on social media. A lot of us have these computers in our phone. We have in our hands, and we have access to the whole world. And again, it just depends on your organization. I loved that question. And from Hannah, what are some examples of CAREpoints that maybe are not thought about?
So I think that, if you do some brainstorming in your organization, you'll probably come up with all sorts of them. So a referral from a friend, someone giving you the name of a potential donor is a great CAREpoint. Maybe there are milestones in between donations that you can acknowledge. Maybe, you've been part of our community for 3 months. I think it's just a matter of being creative and sprinkling them in. Going back to the question that was just asked about social media, there are probably all sorts of CAREpoints that you might become aware of as you get to know your donors better in a social perspective. So maybe someone did just get a new job or a new puppy, or had a wedding anniversary or something like that. I think any time that you reach out and show a donor that you care about them as a person and that you value that relationship is a potential opportunity for a CAREpoint.
Thank you so much. Now, this one from Thomas. What if you thanked a donor in a newsletter? How would that sound to you as a donor? How do you feel about thanking donors in newsletters?
I would ask permission first, especially if someone might not have expected that to be made public. So it's just probably a matter of, on your donor form or following up with them after they make the donation, asking if they're comfortable sharing.
Thank you so much. And that was a great question. Now, from Louise, we are a new national charity in Canada, and they're looking to just begin to engage their donors and create a strong donor strategy. How should they begin with experience design in mind, making sure that they're not too logistics focused?
I would literally use the 3 concept discussion points that we walked through in this webinar. Look at the 3 types of value and how you're communicating that in the 8 stages. So the awesome thing is that, with just starting, you have a blank slate. So you can build something that is just amazing from the start.
Thank you. And from Marianne, what have you seen as some of the most meaningful ways to support value longevity? and anything that you have seen truly transform the experience of the donors while still being able to scale the outreach?
I think storytelling is very important. I think that being able to convey the work that your organization does in a manner that is respectful, for those you serve. I think that storytelling, weaving the impact stories into what you're communicating is really important. Now, a lot of times organizations do the storytelling, but it's not strategically planned around CAREpoints. So, you're talking about things in your regular newsletters, on your website, things like that. And if it's not done intentionally and strategically, your prospective donors might miss it. So I like the idea of knowing, having some clear milestones in your donor experience plan. So, you know that something's going to happen 3 months after they donate, 6 months after they donate, 2 years after they donate, and you design some like drip campaigns that are communicating the value, telling those stories, and you are, dripping those in as you lead up to those milestones and those potential times that that you're going to be asking for a new donation. It's really about warming up your donors before they hit those milestones. And you could do that strategically with the storytelling.
Thank you so much. Okay, you ready to keep on chugging through the questions?
I'm here.
You are a champ. We are putting you on the spot. We are getting some great answers here.
Good questions.
Great questions, and a lot of them that we are sorting through. Now, can you give some advice to someone who is going to start fundraising for the first time?
Well, there are definitely specialists out there who fundraising is what they do. My area of expertise is more around experience design, but I would say if you are sending people out to do fundraising for your organization, you need to do a great job of prepping them to talk about your mission, the impact of your work, and give them a toolkit that they can pull from as they're having those conversations. But Donorbox has probably had webinars with other speakers who really delve into that specific topic area of fundraising. So I wouldn't say that I'm the expert resource around that. But I really think that, giving people, a toolkit, helping them to know where what they do is going to fit into your donor experience plan is going to be important.
Thank you, Joy. And yes, we do have lots of pre-recorded webinars. You can check them out in our Donorbox Knowledge community and on our YouTube. We have had amazing speakers that can talk more about your fundraising initiatives. And we have a lot of amazing resources on our nonprofit blog. And I will, Abjoy, if you will drop that link in the chat for us, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, from Jessica, you mentioned that you can do this kind of CarePoint donor experience design on a low budget. They are currently a staff of 1. Good job, Jessica. Hang in there. You're doing a good job. And looking to staff up. What is the right staffing balance to execute this right?
So when you are designing your CarePoints, you're going to design those based on the fact that you are a one-man show. So you're going to automate as much as you possibly can. So what you want to happen is when a CarePoint is triggered, you want as much of the actions that follow that to be automated as possible. And what you are capable of doing is going to look different than an organization that has 10 staff who are devoted to, donor relations and fundraising and things like that. So you're just going to have to customize the CarePoint to fit what you can actually do. So the worst thing that you can do as a one-man show is try to tackle too much. That temptation to throw everything into a CAREpoint can be really strong, but you want to be realistic about what you can actually manage as one person. I tend to use the 10 times rule. So I look at, when I'm designing a process, I multiply it by 10 and I say, could I do this if I had 10 times more people coming into this process? And if the answer is no, I could not 10 times this volume, then something needs to change. You got to back it down a little bit because you want what you have set up to be able to scale. So use that 10 times rule. It can be really helpful if you're just a one-man show.
Thank you so much. Now, raise your hand in the chat if you are also a small staff one-man show or less than 5.
Or one-woman show.
Yes, yes.
Jessica was.
And now I like this question from Mendy. Using your CarePoint design or donor experience, how can you engage lapsed donors, especially previously recurring donors?
Yeah, so you're going to need a specific CarePoint that is designed for reactivation. So you want a way that, first of all, you can identify people who have previously donated but have not donated in a while. And your approach to them is going to be different based on the amount of time that has gone by. So if you have someone who, just donated in this past year, but they haven't yet donated for the current year, your approach can be different than if you're going back to someone who hasn't donated to your organization in 10 years. Now, I've seen organizations take a variety of different approaches here. So most organizations that do this really well approach the new ask from a perspective of life happens, we had a relationship with you, we'd like to re-invite you back to discover what we're doing that's new and the impact that we've been creating lately. And it's kind of like rekindling an old friendship. So if you had someone that, you had a friendship with and you've just lost touch after a while, how would you approach that from a personal perspective? You wouldn't jump right back at them with, full force. It's like the Christmas letter that you get from someone once a year, and they pack everything in it about everything that they've done, their husband's done, their 4 kids have done, and it's just like a deluge of information. You really want something that feels warmer, friendlier, is more like inviting them back into having a connection with you.
Thank you. That is great advice. Now, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I like this question from John Joshua. Do you have any donor experience advice for approaching corporate donors as opposed to individual donors?
Well, the first impression can make or break any potential partnership, whether you're talking about having a donor relationship with a company or just an individual donor. So, if you're trying to get your foot in the door with a corporation, I think that the key to being effective there is to see if you can warm up the relationship in some way before you make the approach. So, do you have a board member that has a relationship with them? Do you have a relationship with one of their customers? Like, how can you, rather than it being a completely cold cold call on this organization, do you have a warm kind of foot in the door with them? And then just being able to, weave those stories in about, what your organization does and how their support can be helpful to making an impact, I think is key. And remember, we're talking in this stage, even for a corporate donor, we're talking about that promise of value and helping them see that having a relationship with your organization, becoming a corporate sponsor or corporate donor is going to create value for the audience that your organization serves. So you're still talking about that promise of value, the value anticipation. But if you can warm up that relationship before you go in, you generally find corporations to be more responsive.
Thank you so much. All right. I think we're nearing toward the end of our questions. We have one from Tom. Can we just have a little more explanation on the CAREpoints? And Tom, we have so happily shared a link to Joy's CAREpoint planner, and you can click that link there to learn a bit more. Joy, is there a way that you would like to summarize these CAREpoints for everybody in the audience?
So CAREpoints are really about intentionally putting actions into place that are going to happen every single time. So it's understanding how the 8 stages of donor experience relate to your organization. Every organization, no matter what your topic of focus or the mission that you have, the issues that you focus on, these 8 stages are present in your organization. So it's understanding how those play out for your donors and then what's going to happen in each of those stages. So what's going to happen when someone discovers you for the first time? What's going to happen to help them make a decision about donating? How frictionless are you going to make the donation action? What's going to happen after someone makes the donation? And these are all about helping the donor feel connected to your organization, helping them feel that, their donation action made a difference. And you're sprinkling in these CAREpoints all along the donor lifespan. So you can have 8 CAREpoints, you can have 25 CAREpoints, you can have 200 CAREpoints, but it's really about anything that you do to reach out, touch that prospective donor, and nurture that relationship in a way that is meaningful, conveys value, and is appropriate to exactly where they are in that 8-stage lifespan.
Thank you so much. And I think that was a great way to wrap up the session with a pretty bow. Joy, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing this important information with our audience. I know that you will take away all of these wonderful bits of information and apply them to your mission and the experience for your donor. It is so important. Again, I think that 100% of the audience has clicked that CAREpoint planner. Please utilize it. And now we have a link up for you to ask Joy your questions in the community. Now, the community, again, we have a lot of amazing nonprofit professionals and community managers and wonderful speakers such as Joy who are here to answer your questions and to provide resources for you throughout your journey and while you are serving others. Click that link, please join us, and thank you all so much for all that you do for your community. We are so grateful for your work. And everybody, please give a big thank you to Joy. We are so proud to provide the tools and resources you need to help you help others. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.